Hello, my friends. I've got another profiles in 2x2s for us to discuss. And there's nothing salacious about this particular example. It's a person whose story I think many will relate to. Um, However, it has a twist, and the twist is that it's a person who is from a non-English speaking part of the world. And so it has peculiarities that I think a large number of our audience will be interested in. So let's start off. Our person is a young female. She's now in her late 20s, and she's fourth generation 2x2. Her great grandparents were converts to 2x2ism in 1933 when two foreign 2x2 ministers, workers, came to their country. And now their country is a country in South America. And so 1933, I mean, it's interesting that these were English speaking workers who came to this country, could barely speak the language, if at all. And they came to this town or small city, which was not one of the major cities of the country. In fact, it's a distance from one of the major cities. So it's interesting they would come there. And these two male ministers set up uh, a relationship with the local Methodist church. They asked the Methodists if these ministers, two or two ministers, could have Bible study type groups in the Methodist church on the off hours, so to speak. And Methodists thought that was a great idea. Now, by the way, um, this is a South American country, so Catholicism is the majority religion, and Methodists are few and far between. So they probably thought they had some, you know, say compatriots here in these 2x2s, 2x2 ministers, or maybe they didn't even realize what these 2x2 ministers. They obviously didn't realize what they were dealing with. They just thought they were Protestant ministers. Anyways, what these 2x2 workers did, though, was they cannibalized the Methodist congregation. They turned the congregation, any of the Methodist people who attended these Bible studies, they turned them against their own Methodist church, and they converted them into 2x2s. Now, ultimately, they had to leave the Methodist building, but they already had gotten a sizable number of converts. And of course, they were very fortunate, these 2x2 ministers, and that one of the converts they got was a large farmer, in terms of a man with a family and a large farm. Okay, and so he had space so they could have conventions on his property. He had lots of extra housing, buildings, bedrooms, whatever, because so these ministers, 2x2 ministers, could be there. He also ordered, huge amounts of food in bulk. It was, perfect setup for this, how this 2x2 system works. So his family became 2x2 royalty. And the woman we're talking about today is the great granddaughter of this man. Okay. Now, she grew up in it. Her father's side was not as many generations back. Her father's parents were converts, whereas in her mother's side, it's her great grandparents were converts. And her father was a bit more of a, let's say, feisty or questioning type of 2x2. He didn't really put the 2x2 ministers on the pedestal. He would challenge their ideas, and because he himself took his Bible reading quite serious. Both him and his wife, this woman's parents, had actually university educations, and so they read the Bibles, and they pointed out things to these 2x2 ministers where the ministers were wrong. Anyways, but because this family is 2x2 royalty, they can do things like that and not get punished. Anyways, this young woman, she and her sister um, were obviously heavily into the 2x2s. Now, there were all of their cousins and so forth were all 2x2s. But in the town, when they went to school and so forth, there weren't many 2x2s. Now, I'll just give you an example. In this country we're talking about, there's about 1,600 2x2s. Okay, and there are about 200 million people in this country. So not very many 2x2s relative. Anyways, so a lot of her friends from school, or basically all of her friends, were non 2x2s. And her parents actually let her do things, which, in maybe this is because it's the situation I just mentioned, or maybe because it's in the 2000s when she grew up, but she was allowed to take taekwondo, took gymnastics, things like that. In gymnastics, you wear clothing, which is quite revealing, right? Anyways, these sorts of things. But however, she wasn't allowed to wear pants. She go to school, whatever. She couldn't wear pants. She had to wear dresses. She had to have her hair in the standard 2x2 way. No jewelry, no makeup, that kind of stuff. No television in the house. Against 2000s, right? No film, no cinema, no radio in the house. In fact, the father even removed the radio antenna from his car. Okay, though interestingly, the father had a brother who had become an ex 2x2 and had a television, and so whenever they wanted to watch a film, the father would take them to the brother's place and they would watch a film. So like Harry Potter or something like that. So very, again, not watching Christian films, but whatever. So a little bit of hypocrisy, but I think most 2x2s can relate to that. So this young woman, she had no reason to believe that anything was awry with the 2x2 system. There was no problems. Her parents were very loving parents, didn't do anything crazy to her. There was no like sexual abuse from anybody in her life with her. She great childhood. However, when she was about 8 or 9, her cousin started professing for the 2x2, doing 2x2. So of course she thought when she's 8 or 9, she should do similar. But her parents, being a college educated or university educated, were kind of said, that's not appropriate. We should like you to wait till you're a little older when you have a better understanding of things. Well, she was, the clock was ticking in her mind, and by the time she got to be 12, 13, she was now very, very concerned about death. Not that she had a chance of dying, but that she had been fixated that, if she wasn't professing and she happened to die, straight to Inferno she would go. So, of course, that's 2x2, I don't know, tradition or doctrine, but that's what they teach the children, So she started having basically obsessive compulsive disorder because of this. And her grandmother and her mother told her, that this obsessive compulsive disorder, which they didn't know that's what it was, but they just saw her strange behavior. And they said that was Jesus talking to her and Jesus telling on her heart that she had to profess. Right. So that, in other words, you scare the bejesus out of someone and then you tell them it's Jesus that's doing it. And that the only solution out is to join the cult. Right? Clever, clever. But I'm sure that's happened to a number of 2x2. So she joins. And of course, then she has some peace from the thing, and she's good 2x2. And she gets baptized around 17 years of age. Nothing, there's nothing out of the ordinary here. However, again, her parents are university educated, so they want her to go to university, and she studies hard and does very well in high school. So she ends up going to a good university in another city, quite a distance away. Actually, a very prominent university. And of course, that means she has to live on her own in this other city. Now she gets put in contact with the 2x2s in this other city, but the 2x2s don't live in the center of the city where the university is. They live in the kind of the suburbs. So she has to make an effort, take the buses and whatever, to get to their homes, or have someone pick her up from the bus station on Sunday for or Wednesday night for the meetings. Well, she's at university now, right? She's 18, So, and of course, she wants to rebel a little bit, so she buys a pair of jeans. She's gonna wear pants now. First time wearing pants, and she buys some lipstick. Right? I mean, obviously, she wants to fit in with the other university students. Well, she starts having what she would say is a double life, where 6 days a week she was behaving as a regular university student, and she was doing her studies very well. But she did went out to social events with some of her friends from university and so forth. And on one day of the week, she would go to the 2x2 things where she put her hair in a bun and she would wear a dress and no lipstick, no jewelry and so forth. And she thought everything about this was you know uh, she would be able to skate through this, right? It wasn't a big deal because no 2x2s lived in the center of the city, and there was no chance of anyone seeing her. Well, of course, someone did see her, and by that time, she had actually got a boyfriend. Now it's a boyfriend from school, from university, and he's not a 2x2; he's a Catholic actually. And now the 2x2 ministers find out about it, and they call her up and say, "Listen, you know what you've been doing is wrong. You know you're hurting Jesus. You're against Jesus. You're hurting the Lord. You're hurting God. You know you have to break up with this boy. You know it." Well, she's quite perturbed, and but she obeys them, and she breaks up with this young man. And of course, it lasts for a couple of days, and then he and her get talking, and he's able to show her that the reason she's breaking up with him is because of these crazy religious nuts who told her a bunch of lies. So she starts to question him. So she gets back together with the boy, and she says, "Well, maybe if he comes to the gospel meetings, that will clean things up with the ministers, and that will clean things up, with the whole situation, because she obviously loves him, and she just this is the usual path, right?" Well, he goes to a gospel meeting with her, and of course, he's treated as persona non grata. They won't even look at him, talk to him, anything. And now that may sound shocking to some of you, but again, this is in a country where the 2x2 faith is amongst the members is extremely, let's say, vibrant, meaning like you do not cross it, because they have in the midst they have a sense of that they're very, very lucky because they're a tiny, tiny fraction of people are in it, but also there's a bit of a persecution complex, right? Um, so the boyfriend says, since they won't even look at me, talk to me, or anything, I'm never going back to these gospel meetings. So then she's in a bad way, in the sense that like she's either gonna have to choose between him or the meetings. And she starts to obviously have mental problems from this. She starts getting obsessive compulsive disorder. Again, attacks. It's like 5 or 6 episodes of this attacks, crises. She's going to see a psychiatrist. She's got losing all kinds of weight. And her father, who takes pity on her, feels bad. He tries to help her. He says, go on the internet, go on Wikipedia, and look up the word 2x2s, which she does, and she finds out the entire history of this, let's say, illustrious cult. And that was it. She closed her computer and said, "I'm done with these clowns. This is not the Jesus way at all. This is a whole fraud, a farce. I'm out." And that was it. Never looked back. She's now 6 years out of the 2x2s, and she's an accomplished professional in her field and doing well. Now, some interesting bits of information about this case. One is obviously this outside boyfriend was the key turning point. There might have been other things that would have happened, but that was the real fulcrum for her. And I think for a lot of people who become ex 2x2s, that's a similar situation. That's why 2x2s ministers and elders and so forth, members, really discourage having any fraternization with outsiders of the opposite sex because of this. This can happen. Another interesting thing is that she, like I said, she came from this country where the two by twos are very passionate or virulent about their cult. I feel a bit of like they're pioneers, I guess. Um, she had an aunt who married another two by two in the United States and moved to the United States, visited the moved to the United States, and then would come back to the home country for visits and you know tell how things were going in the United States. Now, this aunt lived in Texas after she got married, and she would report back that the American two by twos are it's almost lost. They are in a very bad way. The American two by twos, they are just really like the world has them by the throat. They are well, some of them, many of them have TVs, and there's women wearing pants. I mean, it's just gone to hell in a house handbasket in the United States. The two by twos, they're just well, they're going to hell. Okay, so you can see the conservatism and the passion of this two by twoism from this other country in South America, and that's partly because they feel like a highly special little persecuted group, right? Um, so keep that in mind when you're thinking about two by twos in other countries. That's one of the factors that's going on. That they are different than the ones in the English speaking world. Another thing is that while the person we're talking didn't experience in kind of like child abuse or sexual assault or anything like that, she did have a cousin who was sexually assaulted by a two by two member, and that two by two member is still in the meetings and so forth, and uh, actually has been convicted of a crime because in this particular country, the two by twos are actually a legal entity. They they're like every other church. They have a legal organization and they have a president of their organization and so forth. So um, this is very difficult to hide uh, this sort of stuff as it is in the United States. Um, the 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 fact that this woman's life um, hinged upon this event with this boyfriend, I think, is very important. And then the mental crises that she had, that it brought upon her, and then this event with her father showing her this path out. I think that's sort of unique. But there are things there that you needed to happen. Meaning, like she had to have access to this information to read it. She had to have this obviously this outsider boyfriend, and she had a father who was willing to point her in this direction. That is not the case for everyone else sort of situations. So just to keep in mind that she had somewhat of a special case, but nonetheless, I think the key aspect here is how the two by twoism operates in some of these foreign countries where they're non-English speaking. So they're kind of frontier markets, so to speak, for the two by twoism, and it's quite, let's say, passionate. So um, still small populations, but in their two by twos, but they are, as they say in some other Christian denominations, the uh, the blood of the martyrs feeds the faith of the church. And I think there's some of that phenomenon going on here.